This changes everything for gold and silver. You better get ready because it also changes everything geopolitically in the world. The world is splitting, bifurcating, if you like to use fancy words, and it changes everything for the US dollar. Big, huge news last week. Shocking news as it was reported by Reuters and the big news agencies. You've probably already heard it. But in case you haven't, Saudi Finance Minister Mohammed al-Jadaan, on a panel on Saudi Arabia's transformation, made it clear that Riyadh, quote unquote, will consider trading in currencies other than the US dollar. That is earth-shattering news. There's a reason why the major news outlets said that it was shocking. We need to dig into this, and I'll show you why it's shocking. But more importantly, we're going to do something fun. We're going to talk about the history, just like the last 60 years, of gold, of silver in the United States. This is critical information for us as people who invest in gold. If you invest in silver, if you invest in precious metal mining stocks, to understand the history of what went down over the last few years, and it's not that complicated. We're going to have school in session. You can thank Susie, my wife, for that bell. Her dad used that when she was a little girl, when it was time for her to do her schoolwork. She wanted me to bring it down here, and I said, hey, you know what would be even funnier is if I rang it and you came running down and said, yes, sir, what do you need? Would you like more coffee? And she didn't like that idea. So let's dig into this shocking, changing, incredible news that we need to talk about, and let's do that together right now. This is critical for you to understand as an investor in gold and silver. So you need to stick with me for like the next 2 minutes while we learn the history. And it is very, very fascinating what transpired over the last 60 or so years, 80 years with gold and silver in this country. And by the way, did you notice Susie didn't come running down here when I rang that bell? So let's just start our session right now. During the Great Depression here in the United States of America, President Roosevelt had a problem. He needed a lot of money. But the US dollar, as it says in the Constitution, was backed by gold and silver. Yes, silver was in all the coins and dollars could be traded in for gold. There was a thing called the gold window. Well, he needed to print money and he didn't have the gold to do it. So he confiscated everybody's gold. You've probably heard about that. And then shortly after confiscating it, he pumped up the price of gold. He changed the price of gold, made it higher, which was a really tricky, dirty move because everybody had sold their gold back to the government at 20 something per ounce. And then they revalued it 35% higher to $30 per ounce. It was really a sly, not good move, but that gave them more gold and then even at a higher value so they could print like crazy. Are you seeing a trend here? Then after World War II, when the United States was in a unique power position, we were kind of ruling the world. They had this thing called Bretton Woods, and they established again that our money would be backed by gold and silver. And the European currencies were all mostly linked to the US dollar. But the US dollar was again backed by gold and silver. And we enjoyed a great period of economic growth. Things were good in the 50s and 60s, generally speaking, here in the United States of America. Then, are you noticing a trend here? In 1971, President Nixon needed money for things like the Vietnam War. So he decided that he would basically take America off the gold standard, but it was only temporary. It was only temporary. He took the United States off the gold standard, and ever since then, we've been off the gold standard, and the US dollar has lost 95% of its value. The silver standard, too, by the way. There was still silver in coins up until that point. What's interesting is that in 1974, then they made it okay for Americans to own gold and silver again. But the big, big key here is at that same time in 1974, they'd taken the US dollar off of gold. They needed something new to back it up with. So they went over to Saudi Arabia and basically told the royal family over there, hey, you got two choices. Either you're only going to sell your oil for dollars, or you might have some trouble, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. So the Saudis and all the other Middle East countries agreed the United States would protect them, give them defense, and in return they would only sell oil for dollars. That was the petrodollar, and that has stood for what, 50 years now? The big deal that brings us up to today is when the Saudi finance minister is basically publicly stating we're done with the petrodollar. Now, during that period when oil was only sold for dollars, that immensely helped the U.S. dollar because the Saudis and everybody else would be trading in dollars. They would have all these dollars, and what would they do with them? They would funnel them back into the United States. They would subsidize the debt. They would subsidize our deficits. And guys, we're at a period now where that is all potentially falling apart. It could have serious ramifications on the U.S. dollar. It could have serious ramifications on the price of gold and silver because, part two here is that the world is bifurcating. The world is splitting up, right? You've got the Eastern alliance with Russia, China, possibly Saudi Arabia, right? BRICS, Brazil, South Africa. They are separating from the United States. They are explicitly talking about starting a new reserve currency to conduct international trade outside of the U.S. dollar. And there's serious talk that that currency could easily be backed by gold. Now, the icing on the cake in regards to this is other news we got this week that the Central Bank of Iran and Russia, right, are talking about developing a stable coin, and a stable coin that is a cryptocurrency, but it is absolutely pegged and backed up one for one by a commodity or whatever it may be pegged to. In this case, they're going to start a stable coin that will be directly linked to gold. And they've explicitly said they want to do that so that they can conduct trade in this stable coin outside of the Russian ruble, outside of the Iranian rial, outside of the US dollar. They're basically starting an electronic gold currency, a gold-backed currency, right? I mean, you can slice it and dice it, agree or disagree with crypto. I'm no big fan of crypto. I've called them a lot of them unicorn fart dust in the past. But a stable coin, if highly regulated, and that's the other key point to remember about this. The Russian finance minister, or the central banker, she said the key is it has to be highly regulated, meaning we are in control. We're regulating this. We're assuring that, yes, for each one of these stable coins, there is an ounce of gold to back each one. Things are getting very interesting in the world. I mean, one more point we could talk about, right, is the fact that Vladimir Putin has explicitly stated that he is going to open a new central market for precious metals to compete directly with the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association in London, England, and the COMEX here in the United States of America, because as he said, he's tired of the price not truly reflecting the value, not truly reflecting the market. Look, there's been volumes of books written about price manipulation in precious metals by the COMEX and by the LBMA. And why would they want to do that? Well, let's back up to what we were talking about earlier. Let's go to 1971. Right? When President Nixon took us off the gold standard, got rid of our silver coins here in the United States, that was like they divorced the dollar from precious metals. And what happens during a divorce? Typically speaking, the two parties that get divorced aren't very fond of each other anymore. So after 1971, it was in the best interest of the United States government to suppress the price of gold and silver because they had no longer, they'd said, we don't want to back our currency with gold and silver anymore. Now, essentially, it was backed by oil. And again, with this recent news out of Davos, Switzerland, about the Saudi finance minister saying they are going to start trading oil for currencies other than dollars, the whole system looks to be in a very precarious situation. Correct me what I'm wrong about in this video. I have gone on and on. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed your time here in Ron's Basement. I want you to know you're always welcome here. You can subscribe right here. Give the video a thumbs up. Turn on the little ring-a-ling-ding-a-ling bell. Hey, there's our bell. If you want to help support my channel, go check out my other channel, How to Ron. I've got a great video on there, a hilarious video that's getting thousands and thousands of views about how to fix a zipper. I know you have a zipper somewhere in your house that needs to be fixed, and this video will show you a real easy solution. You're probably hoping I zip my lips up. I'm going to do that right now, but I'm going to look forward to seeing you next time.